but it actually is so straightforward, and especially after George has done all the heavy lifting on a lot of the facts, that I can really get right to the point very, very quickly. Next slide. This study came out today from the Union of Concerned Scientists, and I really recommend you can go to the UCS website and get a 29-slide summary of this. They are making the argument that the vast majority of the coal-fired plants in this country are over 30 years old. The coal industry has been dragging their feet for decades on scrubbers and pollution controls and stalling and basically grandfathering in these old power plants, and we just plain don't need them anymore, not one bit. And when you see first the human health consequences of burning coal that are such a disaster, and then you add on top of it the global climate disaster that coal burning is, it's just a no-brainer. When I look at all the things that we need to start doing as society to start making some progress on the climate change issue, it is a real easy decision that stopping burning coal is the #1 priority. By far, it's the #1 priority. It's the easiest, most obvious thing where humanity can get the biggest bang for the buck the most quickly. And what we're seeing already in the U.S., just in the last 5 years, in 2008, coal produced 51% of our electricity. It's now down to 37% in 2012, and it's dropping like a rock. And so within the U.S., partly because of finally they're being forced to meet EPA air pollution standards that they've been grandfathered in for year after year after year. And finally, though, EPA is saying, okay, this gig's up. You now meet these air pollution standards or you shut down. And you know what? They're having to shut down hundreds of coal plants because of this. And they've known this for decades. They've been sitting on these plants, not investing in even well-known pollution controls, and now the gig's up. And now with natural gas being at record low prices, natural gas is just eating coal alive in the electricity marketplace. And so in the U.S., the trajectory now of coal burning is exactly what we need it to be. Is just going down like a stone, even faster than we all could have hoped it could have gone down. We expect by the end of 2013 that 37% number will be down to something close to 30%. And so in the U.S., we are really finally turning the corner on shutting down coal plants that should have been shut down years ago, and they just can't stall any longer. And this UCS study that I mentioned itemizes all this, and it came out today, so it's brand new and a very rigorous analysis of this issue. So that's the good news. This is the bad news. And it's interesting that here in Missoula, Montana, we inadvertently are right in the middle of this. On a global basis, the use of coal for electric power has exploded. And so you look at the last 5 years, the use of gas and oil is drifting up a little bit. This isn't for electric power production only. This is total CO2 emissions. This is data from the Global Carbon Project. But you see the spike of coal use in the last decade. And this is when supposedly the Kyoto Protocol was in force. What a joke. And so what we're seeing globally is coal emissions going through the roof. And what's incredibly ironic is right here in Missoula, Montana, we're going to end up part of it if we can't stop it. Every time I ride my bike down to work and I see a coal train going by above me, on the tracks there, I think this is why I'm going to work today, right up there. We don't gain a thing on the national level with our success and our national reduction in coal power if on the global scale we have this kind of acceleration going on. Next slide. And as already has been pointed out, China specifically, China, India more generally, are almost all the increase in coal-fired emissions globally. 80% of them were from China last year by the statistics from the Global Carbon Project. And so it's interesting philosophically to see that now suddenly the U.S. is in a defensive position on this, that we're going to sink our own ship if we don't find a way to bring China to the table and start negotiating on this. They're going to just bury us alive. And as this one image shows there, our satellites can track this pollution cloud. And I find it ironic that when we ship coal to China, the CO2 comes back faster than the coal went over there. It's back here in less than a week. We can track the atmosphere. It's less than a week for the air from China to get to Montana. And so any thought that by sending it over there we somehow are avoiding the climate consequences and even the more direct pollution consequences is just ludicrous. All we've done is added the transportation emissions on top of the combustion emissions. How much worse can this get? Geez, I thought the megaload issue was kind of the end. And the megaload issue is just warm up act for this. I mean, if we don't stop the coal trains to China, then it's all over. It really is just all over for the climate topic. Oh, I was supposed to talk about wildfires, so at the last minute I remembered that and stuck in a few wildfire slides. And as you pointed out, the wildfire season is getting longer. And this is, I actually gave this at a congressional review just about 4 weeks ago in Washington. What we're particularly seeing on a western-wide basis is that the season starts earlier in the spring. But it was a very interesting, curious season we had this year, that our fire season went into the fall farther than it's ever gone in my memory. And that's a little uncommon for us. But the net result is we just have more weeks of every year where fire probability is higher and we're just more vulnerable to ignitions. And once they get started, then we end up with the kind of air pollution issues that we've already heard a good bit about. And so this is where the trajectory of our wildfire dynamic is going, and it's going to continue down this road. Next slide. So, yeah, duh, hotter years have more fires. When you're speaking to Congress, you have to take things down to a pretty low level. I was hoping this was low enough. You even make the fire data in red so they kind of connect the color and the message. Next slide. And as I think we've already heard, we just set our new all-time record for the country for the year, the hottest year we've ever had in the continental U.S. We beat the old record by over a degree, which is just an astounding feat for us to have seen, and particularly back in March when we had the first warm-up. I was out in Minneapolis, and it was something like 78 degrees on March 12th, and they just couldn't believe it. It was 20. They were beating temperature records for the date by 20 degrees, higher than had ever been measured before on those dates. You don't break records, climate records, by 20 degrees. You break them by 1 or 2. And you know what, right now Australia is doing the same thing, just in these last couple days. If you have nothing to do tonight, Google Australian heat wave. And their climate office just yesterday had to define a higher color bar on their palette for colors, for temperatures closing in on 50 degrees centigrade, which is 118. It's 118 degrees that they are now experiencing air temperatures in Australia right now. Next slide. I found this to be the most amazing juxtaposition I've ever seen. When Eric Green showed me this picture just a couple months ago, my eyes popped out. Here are these osprey whose chicks have mercury levels 100 times what are considered toxic thresholds, and what do you see in the background? This was not Photoshop. This is real. They've got this automated camera on this osprey nest. And there's one of your beloved coal trains heading to China in the background, causing the mercury pollution that the osprey chicks are then reacting to. Isn't that a classic? Anybody who wants a copy of this slide, just send me an email. And then finally, if we go into burning Otter Creek coal, we'll double the carbon emissions of the state of Montana for a half a century. You know, it's one thing to just year to year make some small decisions that, oh, we need some electric power for now, but locking yourself into a half a century of additional carbon emissions is just, is our opportunity to finally turn a corner and start making the right decisions as Montanans. Because we've already heard of the human health impacts. Now we've heard of the global climate impacts. I mean, this is such a no-brainer to quit burning coal for electric power that it's just amazing. And I think we as Montanans have an opportunity to really be leaders for the nation in this and make some gutsy decisions. I hope we have a governor willing to do it.